Okay, we'll start this meeting, call it to order at 1:17. Thank you. This time, let's go to our creator for our invocation. Counselor Senator, we do the honor.
Dear Father, thank you, Lord, for this day. Lord, be with us as we go through our meetings today. Bless the people we have in our audience today, Lord, and just give us guidance, understanding, and take us through this meeting, and give you all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Roll call, Gail.
Joe Bird,
Ani.
David Watkins.
Ani.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harvey Duggar. Julia Cope. Here. Terry Kitchenrock. Here. Janelle Fulbright. Present. John Gardner. Frankie Harvey. Frank Lloyd Gordon. Present. Steve Keener Jr. Dick Ray.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Denise Taylor.
Here.
Ed Thornton Sr. Victoria Baxter. Sarah Karen Moore.
Honey.
Approval of minutes, they were mailed to you. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to be approved.
Second and second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Reports. Yes, speaker.
Would it be possible, because of the length of our agenda today, that we allow the individuals to stand on their written reports for this meeting?
What's the wishes of the committee? Councilor Watts?
Thank you. I know that there was one request by Councilman Keener, and he may have more to add, and it became a report, and we have a written report, but I know I needed to ask questions of Registrar O'Leary.
If it's possible, because I don't think there's a representative here today, that she do those questions offline with registration.
Okay, would that be to your satisfaction, Councilor Keener? Since we don't have anyone here from registration?
Well, no, but we can't do anything about that, so.
Appreciate you. Okay.
All right, first resolution.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, second. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, so we'll move down to old business. This is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Bart O. Fife as District Judge, Cherokee Nation District Court. Speaker, you want to take that?
Yes, this is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Coleman Bart Fight as a district judge of the Cherokee Nation District Court. Mr. Fight was present about 90 days ago, and this was continued, and I would put this in the form of a motion. He's continued to serve us at the courthouse, and I would put this in the form of a motion.
Second. Second by Councilor Watkins. Discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Congratulations, Judge Fight.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Councilor
Chair.
Beckers.
I just want to make a comment. We had the minimum wage legislation that was inadvertently left off of the agenda. And so I would just like to make sure that it's on the next month's agenda.
So noted.
Right. And the 90 was up.
Okay. So noted.
Okay, thank you.
This is a act amending Cherokee Nation Gaming Commission Act, setting requirements and declare emergency. Councilor Fishenhoff. Councilor Thornton.
Oh, this is, okay. This is the one that they, I have been asked to table for 30 days? Okay. Okay. Motion, table this for 30 days.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Table for 30 days. Okay, got new business. This is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Patsy Nick Smith as board member of Cherokee Nation Foundation. I don't think Patsy is present, but she was last time, so wishes of the committee.
I would put that in form of a motion. She
Second.
has served, I believe, the last 11 months. She took over some of the short term, and to my knowledge, the Cherokee Nation Foundation is getting on their feet. Actually, I've been down to visit, and I think several other people have been down to visit. They've moved to new offices, I believe, on
Muskogee Avenue.
Muskogee Avenue. I don't remember the number. It's
700, I think.
700 Muskogee Avenue, and my understanding is she's been a good participant for the board.
Chairman, can we add as a sponsor?
Sheriff Swanton Stickles, we have as a sponsor. Anybody else? Councilor Fulbright, Councilor Vasquez, Fishing on. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, this is the resolution confirming the appointment of Shannon Fisher as Commissioner of Cherokee Nation Commission. Councilor Fulbright?
Yes, I want to put her a renomination in the form of a motion. And I want to say that I have known her all of her life. She's been solid. I served on the gaming commission with her for several years. She's very, very knowledgeable. She attends all the seminars and meetings, and she's done an outstanding job, and I'm happy to be one of her sponsors. And I'm sure Councilor Garvin wants to be added as a sponsor also.
On second.
Okay, second by
Also,
Councilor
want to
Carter.
say that it's nice going to the meetings, the first one I have ever attended. She's always making emotions. Anyone that keeps up with everything makes the motions. I'm sure they will be the one to have. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'd just like to add.
Okay, anybody, any people want to be added, just raise your hand. Yeah, you got the number there? Looks like everybody but Councilor Taylor. She just raised her hand. Okay, we're good. Unanimous. We'll do that by acclamation then. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sure, Councilor Garvin.
Mr. Chairman. I've known Shannon for many years, better not say how many, but we used to kind of run with the same crowd down there. And she's an outstanding student of the gaming commission. She's done a great job for the past 10 years. I'm sure she'll use her wisdom and knowledge to keep us out of trouble, so make sure she does that. I think we're doing a great time in this. She'll be
Good. And we have the Honorable Judge Fight with us now. Yes, sir.
Made my court that he would like to at least say thank you.
Sorry, they both want to say that.
Okay.
I just want to thank the council for your confidence in me one more time. The Gaming Commission is near and dear to my heart. I work really hard. Most of all, I just thank you for your confidence once again. Thank you, Chief.
Congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Judge?
That's kind of what I would like to reiterate as well. I appreciate your all's confidence. I apologize for being tardy. Something about Judge Payton's docket kept me hung up a little bit down in Salisaw, but I made it. Anyway, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you, appreciate you.
Next is a resolution electing the office of Secretary of the Tribal Council. Speaker?
Yes, this comes up on a yearly basis. This is number 3. As we always do, we place a resolution before you with a blank in it. And at this time, then we would ask for nominations. And I would like to go ahead and nominate our current secretary, who is Joey Fisher.
Okay.
I second.
Motion, got a second by Counselor Fulbright. Discussion, any more nominations? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Secretary. Okay, next, resolution ratifying implementation agreement. Number 2, implementing 08 memorandum of understanding is tribal priority allocation funds or aid to tribal government between Cherokee Nation, Delaware Tribe, and Indians. Counselor Lay, Counselor Vasquez, Counselor Fishenhall, Speaker. Who's going to take that? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this resolution is ratifying implementation of the 2008 Memorandum of Agreement to the Priority Allocation Funds, Aid to Tribal Government between the Cherokee and the Delaware. And I think that this basically streamlines that operation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Counselor Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I assume the AG's office is here to address any technical questions?
Yes, as is Mr. Cross.
May I address my questions? Thank you for being here. So what does this functionally change or do different than what we're already doing today?
Right now, they are considered a subrecipient. The money flows through us out to them. They provide us requests for funding and process those. This will allow them to have direct funding so that we are no longer part of that chain.
So it would allow them, we would eliminate the overhead cost of us to them, and it's in a non-competitive fashion, right? They still have to, even though they're not a subrecipient, they still have to coordinate with us because they can't.
Yes, there are certain restrictions on it having to do with them applying to the
Okay. I think that's it then. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Speaker?
It would also take us out of the liability.
Yes, it would.
So they administer their own funds. We will not be monitoring those activities. So if there is a mistake made, then it will be on them to pay back the NAHOSTA funding. And they will be audited by NAHOSTA and annually reviewed, which is the same thing that's happening now, and it's happening through us.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And actually, it creates a better relationship, partnership with our neighboring tribe, correct? Yes, Counselor King?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there an implementation date?
Yes, it's supposed to, they actually changed their fiscal year to start May 1. May 1, and so it would begin at that. They've already submitted. April 1, okay, April 1. They've already submitted their housing plan for that date, that time frame, with the understanding that this has to be approved before any waiver review it. But they have submitted it for that time frame, and if this were not approved and not signed, then HUD would not review it. But yes, it's been submitted, because they had to do it 90 days before the start. 75 days. 75 days, sorry. Before the start of their fiscal year.
And it would be April what again?
April 1.
April 1 on 2014. On page 6, it says 2013. Note that. And is this all or nothing, or is there a transition? Is there some kind of a transition schedule? I see the starting in 08 to 14.
What they do is they will, if they approve this, if they sign it, they're also signing for what? They're They're also signing for what funds, they're basically signing that accounting. We provide an accounting for those, the years that have already happened. They will receive that funding as well. All funding that we have, they will get. When they're signing off that that's all the funding that's owed to them. So, as far as the transition, it's an immediate transition to them. Anything that's owed to them is on that accounting, it's passed off to them. We're still working with HUD for how this can all be accomplished.
How about administrative costs?
Those have already been reflected in there for the years that we've, the prior years. From there on, there won't be any administrative costs that we will take out because we won't be.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page, this funding is not our funding. This belongs to the delegates. It's a calculation by HUD based on the number of housing units they have. So, yeah, it's their funding, so we're looking forward to being able to.
The title for this legislation?
Thank you.
You good?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
Counselor Taylor?
I was just going to ask, if we go ahead and approve this, will there be we'll be able to meet their April 1 deadline for getting everything transferred? We have ample time for it to all go into effect?
Yes, it's not a problem on our part to do that. The question that we're still waiting for a clear answer is from HUD is, are they going to allow the Delawares to, and we have a conference call next week on it with that, are they going to allow the Delawares to have a 2014 Indian housing plan? HUD could say, no, you can start 2015, but we're really wanting to start this, and so does the Delawares, on April 1 of this year, 2000.
So we're doing our due diligence to get them on their own feet in 2014?
Yes.
Okay,
If
thank you.
possible, yes.
That's all.
Good. Counselor Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and as Councilor Keener has pointed out, we've got a Scribner's error on that page 6 of 2013. If that could be changed to 2014, I believe would be, would that be correct, Lou? And I'll put that in form of the motion.
You want to make amendment? So,
Yes.
correction?
Correction.
There's also a correction on the title.
Which one?
The title of the legislation
Back up
says,
front? Okay. What should that be then?
it says the priority, basically it's
Set
talking
that
about the
friendly.
priority funding, and it's actually,
Okay. The speaker accepts
Okay.
that friendly, so we're good.
And do the title too, yes, include the title.
You good with that?
I'm good with that, yes, sir. Thank you.
Are we good with that? All in favor? Counselor King?
Oh, what's the correction to the title?
it says priority funding, and it's actually the NAHASDA funding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll end up saying NAHASDA funding for Delaware Formula Current Assisted Stock.
Thank you.
Good. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion, possible actions, Legislative Act 4612, Cherokee Nation election law. Speaker and Councilor Fisher.
This is several amendments to Title 26. It would be an amendment to Title 26 of our code pertaining to elections. And what we've been doing is having the election lawyer, our lawyer, I believe Todd Hembry has weighed in numerous times on this. And these are the things that we have come up with to make our election laws consistent with our Constitution and how the Election Commission does their business. Everything is in red that would be changed. That which would be deleted has line through it. So I would put that in the form of a motion.
Motion and second, discussion. Councilor Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did not have this before the meeting, right? We only have the hard copy in front of us. I don't remember getting this electronically or in the book. So this is the first time I'm reading it with the changes, correct?
I think it was placed at where you're sitting.
Okay, so right before the meeting. So there's some pretty significant changes here that I'm just now having the opportunity to read, because if I understand on page 4, Chapter 2, I think Section 11, Cherokee Nation Election Commission, at the top of the first paragraph at the end, that would effectively eliminate obligations of the Election Commission being obligated to Tarot compliance and a number of other laws, is the way I read that.
That is correct, they would follow Title 26. In a review of the Constitution, what it says is that we will make laws pertaining to the election, which is Title 26. And we're just clarifying there that they operate under Title 26.
So yes, they would no longer have to comply with Tarot and a number of other tribal laws that I know I consider them to have to be compliant with, just like everyone else in the Cherokee Nation, is what I heard you say. Correct, they would not have to comply with Tarot.
They would be compliant with Title 26, which is what is before you today.
By Constitution.
By Constitution, it says that we pass laws pertaining to the election, and that is Title 26. And that's what's before us today.
So I don't know if the authors if you'll point out to me in the Constitution what precludes us from making the Tarot law applicable, that we can only do law within Section 20 or Title 26 or the election law, that we can't ask.
Nothing precludes you from making laws as long as you make the laws pertaining to them in Title 26.
So with this one sentence, we're going to have to go back through and consciously think about all these other laws that would have to apply to them and add them to Title 26 in order for them to be applicable to the Tribal Election Commission.
Yes, Chair, they're a constitutionally organized commission. They're the only commission talked about in the Constitution. And it says they are to be autonomous. Now, if you look up the word autonomous, what that means is that they make their own policies, they govern themselves. And that we're not to interfere with their process. Then if you look under the Constitution, it says the council shall enact an appropriate law not inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution that will govern the conduct of all elections. That's what they operate under. Above it, it says, in accordance with election laws. I mean, that's what Section 1 of the Constitution says. So what we're trying to do is get everything that governs them in Title 26. So they would be responsible for being current with Title 26 and any amendments there, which today would be considered an amendment. They're not a department, and that's what you are trying to make them, is a department of the tribe, but they're not a department of the tribe.
We asked the Gaming Commission, we asked the Tax Commission, we asked the Environmental Protection Commission, we asked Waste Management, which all these other commissions and boards to also comply with Tarot and.
Tribe, and they're not mentioned in the Constitution.
I appreciate that they are mentioned in the Constitution, but I don't think it says that. In addition, on page 6, and basically I'm gonna have to read as I go. I don't know if the chair would rather us go section by section, but I'm not gonna vote on something if I haven't read it, and if it's dropped in my lap with a bunch of other stuff, and I haven't had time to read it at meeting time, then we can either go through it section by section, or I guess it can just be voted through by the masses, and we just leave it at that. But how would you like to proceed?
Where are your concerns? Let's address the concern first.
Okay, so on
We don't have
page.
to read them by section.
Well, I'm gonna have to, otherwise we're gonna have to pause and let's take a big break while I get to read, or somebody, maybe everybody else got to read it in the room, but I didn't.
Would you yield and go through what other concerns are, because we got a couple other councils.
As long as you come back, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this And I'm in agreement, this is a lot of good cleanup work in this act here. At the Constitutional Convention, and you and I were both there, I felt like that we were stating that we wanted the election commission free of political environment and political influence. And so I can't find myself hyper jumping to where if the election commission is not subject to Cherokee Nation laws, then they don't need this law. If you could nuance me a paragraph there that could provide payroll protection and maybe another item or two that I'm not thinking of right now, I could support it. But the way it's written here is just so, it's like a hard chop or hard break of what I thought that we went through in the Constitutional Convention. That's just my point. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
What we could do is put in here something that they develop policies for Carroll. Because they're gonna have to develop policies on several of these areas. So we could have them include in their policies that they will, follow Carroll.
I'd sure like to see that, yeah. If you could try to fashion me a paragraph there, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that might come under, page 7, where it's talking about policies
How about this? Nothing herein shall prohibit the Cherokee Nation Election Commission from adopting tribal preference policies for hiring and contracting.
And we could put it right here at the end of the last red part of page 4.
Nothing herein shall prohibit the Cherokee Nation Election Commission from adopting tribal preference policies for hiring, and then let's add and contracting.
Okay, the wording would be nothing prohibits, but we're not asking that. Seems like we're leaving it up to them. Can you give me another word or phrasing or something? I hate to be a hard case.
I think the better wording would be a portion of their policy shall address.
And is shall a must
Yeah,
do
they
word
gotta
or
look at it
something?
then. A portion of their policies shall address adopting tribal preference policies for hiring and contracting.
Dick, would you like to put within 90 days of adopting this, so we can get it on the timeline like we did here?
Such policies to be implemented within 90 days.
Yeah, you have time to
Develop them,
Develop
get them
them.
and implement them, so we won't have.
Well, they should be able to take what we've got and say, this applies to us. So we need to follow those things. That's what you
Yeah,
mean?
I want to kind of put them on a timeline.
Good idea.
So you're requesting 90 days?
Yeah, let's add like a 90-day limit or something.
Did you get that, Gail?
Harvey or the Secretary of State, do you think that'd be possible? One of you all? Maybe put it like a,
Put a 90-day period there where they have the opportunity to implement.
So shall does
let-
not mean you will? Sure.
Dick, let's think about this wording. Within 90 days from adoption of this act, the commission shall adopt tribal preference policies for hiring and contracting.
And does shall mean that they will do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
think I made the motion.
I'll accept it.
I would ask that that be a friendly on page 4.
Yep. That
Would
way
you
we'll
want
get
us
our
to read
calendar.
that?
Would you restate that? for
Yes,
the-
please.
Within 90 days from adoption of this act, the commission shall adopt tribal preference policies for hiring and contracting. And there, will that work from your area? That'll give you 90 days.
Okay.
That the administrative
Counselor Lay, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that one, thank you. And then the shall not be subject to Cherokee Nation laws.
Where's this
I-
at?
I'm not sure on page 4 on the bottom red.
Well, other than Title 26, and now they will subject themselves to policy to terror.
Does Title 26 mean if somebody goes to the courthouse and wants to bring them in and say the election didn't go correctly, that they still have access, an offended party will still have access to go to the courthouse?
Yes, that's in here.
Yeah.
This is Title 26,
Okay.
just with the red lines being the only amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Clarified. Counselor Lay. Okay. Any other discussion? Counselor Keener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, I was reading as fast as I can, and I'm sure I can skip some things, but on page 17, on section 2, it says, it talks about committee man. Let's see, attempting to influence election commission appointment duties to commit a crime. It doesn't, I didn't see definitions of those crimes, so is that in here?
You're on page 17.
Yes, where I first came across that, but I was looking for definitions.
Once we pass it as a crime, then we will have to go to our criminal code and name that crime and what the punishment might possibly be. You don't do it in Title 26, then it goes back to the criminal code. And the agent's office is going to do that. I'm going to talk to the agent.
Do we need to say that in this body?
Well, no, that's just procedurally the way you do it.
Bear with me just a second. Okay, on page 27, 72, section, do we want to say under D, citizenship, in the red, and Cherokee Nation citizens rather than membership?
Citizenship number.
It does make a friendly amendment for that.
Change it to citizenship.
Okay. I would accept that as a friendly.
What is that?
It's on page 27, changing the word from membership to citizenship at the bottom of the first line of the last paragraph of the first line.
Yeah.
I would accept that. Are you making that as a friendly?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I would accept that.
There may be other instances of that.
Anywhere where we put membership by mistake, we could change that to citizenship. And I can do a search and change.
Okay. On page 15, I was going to ask about the fees for filing. Why that made such a huge jump?
What we did there, Lee, if this is okay.
Yeah, whoever needs.
What we did there, Lee, was we canvassed tribes in Oklahoma and across the country, and those first two are spot on what most of the tribes of any size are charging now for those first two positions. In fact, I think, I misplaced my paper. but
Truck
we
calls with
even
chicken
had-
sauce for 2,500.
Now, the office of the council varied anywhere from a low of 2 to past 1,000. So we just did a middle point on that one. And by the way, the first two positions varied anywhere from maybe 1,500 up to 5,000. So we kind of hit a middle point on all three of them.
Thank you. And I'm trying to get through this more, so I may have some more substantial questions, but I'll pause right now. Thank you.
Any more discussion, Counselor Watts?
Thank you, and I'm not done reading, so this is just where I've gotten at this point. So, page 6, so on number 6, at the top of page 6, is this saying that there's no requirement for people to submit their address, and how do we know it's accurate? I mean, there's no ownership, and why, how is the voter form now legible? I don't understand how we're gonna use other sources other than the voter to qualify addresses.
Mr. Chapin may want to answer that too, but in the last election, there was a lot of difficulties locating different, where different people lived because of post office boxes. And so the election commission had to do 911, county treasurer, county assessor sites, even post offices to get the correction. And so,
In the last election after the redistricting, as you know, we had thousands of people that we had to determine which district they were in. Many of those people, the software program that we have, can put them in there from a physical address or a 911 address in the correct geographical area. The people that have PO boxes, the people that have rural routes still have the old rural route address on their registration. Those can't be located with the new computer software for geological replacement. What we did in the last election in the districts, we went to the post offices and the rural routes. We went to these other sources and found the same person, same date of birth, same address, so that we knew we were talking about the same one that we had a registration on. And that allowed us to determine a physical address for that person. And then we placed them in the district that they're supposed to be in. Some of you who may have been at some of our court cases, those issues came up several times as to a certain address where these people actually live. And I think the court at that time approved our methodology that we'd use to do the best we could to find out where these people actually live. And these were the tools that were used to put them in the correct district. Anytime someone registers, we still need that. Now, hopefully that will not be as important this time, because on our new application forms, we asked for a physical address or driving directions to the house so that we can put them in the correct district. But there's still a lot of them that have the old PO boxes and real route numbers. That's the purpose for that provision.
So I respectfully still disagree, because there was no confirmation that, yes, I mean, because there's still data out there that says people may live there, but they may not live there. And there was never, ever an actual confirmation. So if either Janice or I are in Mays County, for example, maybe we've moved around, maybe one of us has a house that's burned, it's no longer there, but it's still on the assessor records. That doesn't mean I live there, even though says that. You would have to come to both of us with whatever you found and confirm it, and that shouldn't be legislated. That should be something that you have a tool to do. But to me, you're legislating the ability to go and check websites, and the internet's not always right. And possibly move me without my knowledge.
I don't think we're not talking about moving you if you're in the district now. The issue would be when you have new people register, or when you redistrict next time, then that's when you use these tools.
That's not using.
Didn't the election commission also physically go and look at the sites too? They went out to different places, residences and stuff, during that process.
They didn't talk talk to people, though.
Only the ones that were contested. It is on the ones that were contested, but not on, it would be physically impossible to go out and look at all the residences of all the voters.
Well, here's how I understand it. You all sent cards out to everybody you could at their last known address, if they had a post office box. The ones that didn't answer, you started trying to find physical addresses for them. You did the very best that you could. If these folks are interested in our election, then they will come in and get assurances that you got their right address. So a little bit of it needs to be on the voter, I think. I think you all do the best you can with what you have here at hand. And then if they're such as what Councilor Watts has said, there's somebody's not in the right place, then you'll send them to the election board to make sure that their address is corrected if you know they're not in the right place. You'll have a list. You'll know what they're saying the address is. So if you go down here and Joe Blow is not got the right address, then if Joe Blow is on your list, then you call Joe Blow and tell him, you better go down to the election commission and get your address right.
Mr. Chair, may I
Everybody has to
direct
work here
questions
together.
to this?
Hold on. We through? Yes, and after you
So-
get through, Counselor Snell here hasn't had an opportunity. We're gonna try to have everybody have input here now. Back to you,
Well, and I have a
Counselor.
number of questions still. So on
Everyone
this same
does.
issue, but I think I don't have a problem with them seeking out information in any way. I think that's good, that we actively look for where our voters are and know if it's a bad address or not. It comes down to the logistics of at what point is that voter informed that they have a bad address or that they've possibly identified a good address, and that voter, until they actively confirm a change of address, they should not be moved from their last known good address.
If their address is a post office box, Jared, we don't know which place they're supposed to vote at.
And I think that's to the point when Harold DeMoss's case on residency, Justice Leeds spoke to the fact that there's snowbirds, people in the RVs that move around, and they have a P.O. box. So if it were a snowbird situation, it's not us, I think what her point legally in the case, and I'm not the attorney, was that it's not our position to say where they live or identify where they live at that moment in time. That P.O. box becomes their residence, and that's the legal use for that voter.
If I may explore this with Mr. Shannon, did you say you were only going to use this for redistricting purposes?
And for applications where they,
But on new applications, they're having to give you a physical address.
Right.
So,
But that's not what's stated in here.
so the rest of it would only be used for redistricting, which is another 10 years from now.
I think that's correct.
Uh,
I think the reason the Election Commission asked you to consider this is because this is what they did in the last redistricting. And in some of the cities, you have a post office, you have a district on one side of town, district on the other side of town. You have no way of knowing which district to put that person in. Unless you put them in the district where the post office is. We fought that battle, and we talked to the Supreme Court about it in our hearings we had. The Constitution says you must vote in the district where you're a resident. So if you vote, if you're put in a district where there's a post office box and you live in a different district, that's an illegal vote under the Constitution. And that's what we were trying to avoid, those challenges that would be viable under the Constitution if they did vote in a district in which they did not live.
That's the purpose of this change you're trying to.
Yes.
Counselor Snell, do you have a comment? Counselor Taylor?
I wanted to clarify on this, the 911 address, the treasurers, assessors, all these different methods of trying to target a voter. It's my understanding that is sort of a layered approach, that you don't just take one source's word for this is where this person lives. If you have verified a social security number and a name,
Date of birth.
date of birth. It's not just, if this person shows up at this address one time, that's what you go with, is my understanding.
They require other confirmation other than just a name. There has to be some tie back to that person, where social security number, date of birth, or something, some identifying number other than just the name and address.
Okay.
But a lot of people have the same names.
Yes.
Any more questions for Mr. Chafin? Mr. Keener?
While we're in this section or area, on page 6, number 8, that's almost all that will be stricken. The election commission will approve the number and location of precincts, and then just post that after their selection. Do I need to go back to number 7, and that's where it picks up the 90 days before? Is that why it's stricken in 8?
No, the problem with that is that with 8, last time, I don't know if you remember, but the commission didn't give those precincts to the council 90 days before because they were not determined at that time. The precincts, they're not the same all the time because they're maybe in a church, they may be in a community building, they may be somewhere else. The next time it comes up, that same location may not be available. So it's kind of like a new process every time. You go see the people, you find out, tell them the dates that you have it, find out the locations, and then we sign a little contract with them or a lease with them to use it during that period of time. And last time we had 2 or 3 that they said, yes, you can do it. Then when we go to them, they've changed their mind, so we had to pick another location. So the reason for that is that there may not be, and that's what happened in one of the last elections, that may not be, it may not be possible to do that 90 days before. And they will be, I mean, as soon as the commission can get them, they get them and they post them on the website, on their website.
So with this, there's no, it'll be 30 minutes before the polls open, or a minute before.
Well, if it was, the commission wouldn't be doing their job, and they're charged under the Constitution to do their job. So I think you have to have some confidence in the commission to do that.
Before, we always had the 90 days in there, so is there some?
I don't think they ever complied with it, though, quite frankly.
Well, I was going to ask, is there some practical amount of time that should be put in there to help?
Well, I think a time could be selected. Probably, I would certainly hope for the public they'd have it done within 30 days at least and posted. But now, I don't remember for sure, but I think the cards they mail out may have the precinct locations on them.
And when do we have to have those cards to the vote?
I don't know, that's in here somewhere. I think that's in the that may be in the regulations. I'm not sure what time that is.
So those could be mailed out with unknown precincts.
No, I think they have the precincts on them where they're registered. Now, the location of that precinct may not be determined when they get the cards. That's possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, because I'm concerned, because I heard a number of things. The way I read it, there will be no publishing in the Cherokee Phoenix of those precincts so that it's very clear to folks, even with bad addresses or mail somehow misplaced, where the precincts would be. There's no assurance to the Cherokee people that would compel some minimal standard of communication in the Cherokee Phoenix of precinct location. There's no guaranteed time frame for them to understand where the precinct would be. And then if you're relying on the cards, I read the law says shall mail out voter cards at each election. The Election Commission in both 2013 and 2011 chose not to mail out cards, even though it says shall mail out cards. So if we're going to rely on the voter cards to notify voters of precincts, we weren't guaranteeing that minimum either. So I don't support striking this. So I'm trying to understand what reasoning I would have to support striking any of this when we're supposed to be helping set a minimum standard of communication concerning precinct locations.
Well, I'd say first that I think this particular provision does fall within the ability of the council to speak because it is in connection with the conduct of the election. So that would be, I think, the council's decision as to what time frame they think they want it in there. All I would ask is that give us as much time as possible to change if we need to, with the problems that we have sometimes locating precincts. At the same time these precincts are going on, you've got absentee ballot requests coming in, mailing out, and all that stuff. You got a lot going on during that period of time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to restore number 8 to its original language.
Second. Motion and a second. To restore 8 to its original language. Discuss. Speaker?
Everything that we're discussing is going to be covered, I would think, in the policies. There seems to be some fear here that somebody 30 minutes before the election starts is going to change the polling place, and we know that's not going to happen. They've got to have contracts on all of these places well in advance, and their policies will cover getting out notices to everyone of where to go vote. You've got to leave a little bit to their policies, and this is what this does. And so I won't be supporting changing it. It was something that they asked for. I think it's appropriate that we give them a little leeway, and I'm going to be supporting it.
Councilor Fishenhall?
I can't support it just because in this act we're telling them they're autonomous, they're standalone, and in this one we're saying you've got to come to us where the places are and where you're putting them, and you got to do it 9 days out. So we're kind of going back on what we're telling them they are. So I really can't support it. I don't think you're going to come and announce a polling place 1 day before. I have that much faith in y'all. And I know it's going to have to be before you mail out the red and white cards, because it has on there where your polling places are. And I did get my cards.
As far as I know, they mailed them all out.
Adair County got theirs.
You've had a motion and a second. We got in discussion. Now you have a proposed friendly, and we're in discussion with that. Councilor Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd kind of like, if you want to take out some of this wording, I guess I'm good with it. I'd kind of like to see a definitive time period. And I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you. I think if I'm a voter, of course, you and I are very much up on where those precincts would be in our district. But some of our voters would say, okay, now I used to vote at the WW Keeler Complex, and now I've got to go vote at the Cooey Clinic. And so that's a matter of probably 5 miles driving difference. And if that happens, I think that we need to tell them, we need to alert them to where they need to go vote. And I don't know what the day should be, time period should be, but I'd kind of like to see a hard number.
Yeah, of all the councilors, I probably took it on the chin more than anybody. Largest number of votes cast usually is at Sequoia High School. They changed that on me, and they moved it to Hastings Hospital, which was a major, major change for me, and I had to take it on the chin. There were some jokes that were made, so, well, I got my blood pressure checked, but I didn't get the vote. I said, well, maybe we'll work our own case. So I see where you guys are going with this, but we're gonna have to have a time frame implemented in that to appease the council members.
Dick, would you be suggesting language of after the second read portion of Part 8 that posted after their selection at least 30 days ahead of the election?
30 is awfully quick. I'd like
60
to,
would be better.
I think 60.
Well, you're filing in March. You got March, April, May. I guess you do, yeah, you could.
But about 45
that-
days to
so
shoot the middle.
That leaves them 45 days, I suppose, to get them all set.
I think we may have a compromise of 45.
45? 45 days?
45 days? Are you making that a friendly?
Oh, yes, ma'am, thank you.
So how we would word it is approve the number of locations, precincts, and such locations are to be posted after the selection at least 45 days in advance of the election.
Yes. That work? Karen, would that work with you?
No.
Okay, so she has a motion on the floor. We need to vote on that motion, and then I guess if that doesn't go, Mr. Lay, would you then make your friendly?
I see, yes.
Okay, we do have the motion on the friendly amendment. Motion by Councilor Watt, second by Councilor Keener.
And I still had asked to talk on this motion.
In addition to what we've already said? You just asked to, item number 8, is this in addition to item number 8, or just?
So
item
I'd like
number
to
8?
speak, there's been no one to speak for the motion, and so I was in line to speak for the motion. You've let everybody else speak against the motion, but I'd like to speak for the motion.
Councilor Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I ask a question for clarification, and so the wording back like it was, not a 60-day?
90 days, and that they're required to publish it in the Cherokee Phoenix for folks.
Okay.
The feedback I've gotten from our constituents is that especially after we remove the Administrative Procedure Act requirements, that the way that the Election Commission has been operating doesn't allow for transparency and for interaction, and that they've eliminated people being able to ask questions at the meetings, and so we're going away from involving our people in the elections, and we're creating barriers to voting. So I strongly disagree with the earlier comments that we can trust that people will do what's required. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you heard the motion, you got second comments. All in favor of restoring number 8 on page 6, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye. Roll call.
Roll call, go.
Dick Lay,
Abstain?
Curtis Snell,
No.
Denise Taylor,
No.
David Thornton,
No.
Victoria Vasquez, David Watkins,
No.
Tyler White,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzer, Joe Byrd,
No.
Julia Cope,
Yes.
Jody Fishingham,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
John Garvin,
Yes.
Frankie Hargis, Hannah Laura Jordan,
No.
Nick Key.
Yes.
Five noes, one yes, one abstention. Back to the original motion. Do you want to accept Councilor Lay's friendly?
And I accept it.
Discussion? Councilor Taylor?
I have a question on this. The way it reads, it is 90 days before the first day of filing.
The way I read that, that means that the precincts have to be set in January. Filing doesn't start until March. Am I incorrect in understanding, they're saying set the precincts before anyone has even filed. I am incorrect?
You're correct.
You're correct, that's the
Okay.
way it read. And
Okay.
if nobody ran, they already had contracts they had to cut.
Right.
Take for instance, Chuck's district. The way this read, if I'm sorry, you don't give me permission to talk, is that, but the way it read.
Counselor Taylor, you yield?
I will yield.
The way it read, they had to have their contracts signed with every place for a polling place before anybody even filed. So if nobody filed, they still had a contract they had to fight.
Let me ask if this is an appropriate time to perhaps amend this and tie it to the election rather than the filing. And at least that would eliminate making these contracts when there's not even going to be an election in that polling place.
We have, if I may.
Yes.
I think we did by tying it to 45 days prior to the election. So
Okay,
they
where-
have to have their polling places now, 45 days prior to the election. That was the amendment that was approved through.
Counselor Taylor,
Mr.
that's the friendly
Lace's
proposed
suggestion.
by
Can we
Counselor
read
Lay.
that?
Yes, would you please?
Right, well, okay, please.
Approve the number and location of precincts, and such locations are to be posted after their selection at least 45 days in advance of the election.
The election, okay, yes, thank you, and thank you, Church.
Any other comments? Okay, you have the motion, then you have the friendly.
We accepted, so I don't think we even have to vote on it. He's made a friendly to myself,
Okay.
and I made the motion, and I accepted it. The second accepted, so we won't still have to.
We still got to vote on the motion.
Oh, on the whole motion,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, are we gonna vote on everything and change, all the changes at the end?
I open it up for discussion, if it's up to you guys.
Point of order, where are we at? What are we doing? Is this on just that, number 8, or are we now suddenly going to vote on the whole thing?
We were voting on number 8.
Okay, but that was a friendly, so there's no vote, right, if it was
Just move on
accepted?
to her next
All
question
right.
now.
I have a suggestion on the friendly, rather than at the end stating the 45-day, but approve the number and location of precincts at least 45 days before the election. And such locations are to be posted after their selection.
It does say that post after.
Right, but you have.
You're supposed to add it earlier in the sentence.
Right, it
You
reads,
close better.
it flows better if you add it
Again.
after the, approve the number and location of precincts at least 45 days in advance of the election. And such locations are to be posted after their selection.
If that's okay with the body, that's fine with me, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And where will they be posted?
Yeah, it is.
Where will they be posted, is the question.
Do y'all not want to do anything? I mean, if I can respond, they are going to develop policies consistent with the laws that we're giving them. I would assume that would be covered in the policies.
Yes.
Most of it's on their website, and for the commission, they post it on their website.
Not the Cherokee Phoenix?
Well, I think,
Phoenix will pick up as a news item, and publish it,
Repeat that again, Marvin.
So we would hope that the Phoenix would pick it up as a news item, publish it, and we wouldn't have to pay for it.
Absolutely, that would be good. Is that good?
Thank you.
We would certainly give them a release of that information.
Yeah.
All right, Counselor Wise?
Thank you. On page 7E, are we eliminating their requirements to do FOIA and making sure that our citizens have access to information after we've already removed them from the Administrative Procedures Act? Because the way I read it, we're not requiring them There's nothing compelling them by law to disclose information which should be readily available to our citizens if we do the changes in E on page 7. Is that correct?
It's a work day.
This
doesn't it?
speaks to meetings, not information, it speaks to meetings. That's the topic in this meeting.
Okay, but they still can't pursue a quorum outside the meeting. Then they still have to do open meeting requirements, right? But why I'm reading this is we're eliminating, they could just go meet and decide everything at somebody's house and nobody's gonna care, or nobody can compel them by law to care.
We would care.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And Mr. Chapin, you may want to confirm this. What occurred during the last election? The election commission was doing a lot of work because of the redistricting and having to deal with things. They were trying to meet and get some things done, but all the decision-making and their final decisions were done in the meeting. And that's exactly what this is. They want to be able to meet and work and get things done without having to constantly have a meeting, but anything, and it says here that no policy decisions they would do that in an open meeting as far as voting or any policy decisions. The rest of it is just allowing them to have working groups going and doing different things. Mr. Chapin, you want to-
And in the last election, the commissioners won the financial reports by candidates. They have to spend time reviewing those. They don't take any action on them, but they have to know what's in them. There's constantly things come into the office that the citizens are asking. They're referred to the commissioners. So those things where they may be trying to find precinct locations. And usually they'll have, the commissioners will go actually look at the locations together. Under the Open Meeting Act, anytime any three of them are together and conduct any business, they would have to post a notice. They couldn't do that and really conduct the business of the commission. This commission is basically a working commission. The commissioners go down there and work. They may look up names and addresses. In the redistricting, they were trying to find where these people live. They were making telephone calls, asking people what their driving directions were and stuff to get them in the right district. So the purpose of this is to allow them to do their work together when they're not making policy decisions without risking being in violation of the Open Meeting Act. They fully intend, and I think they will, as it says here, pursuant to policies and procedures developed by the Election Commission. The Election Commission does intend to adopt policies and procedures to make their meetings open to the public, which I would assume would be basically what they are now. I don't know if they plan any changes. But again, that really doesn't have anything to do with the conduct of elections. That's the commission running their business, and they're independent and autonomous. They should be allowed to run their business as the Constitution envisioned they would, free of restrictions from the council.
Councilor Lay?
Thanks, sir. So the working meetings are just that. They're really working on something. If they decide they need to vote on an issue, they bring it out to the full commission. And at the full commission, will anybody, any citizen or the Phoenix still be allowed in to view the meeting?
Yes, there'll be open meetings. Now, I know something was mentioned about the audience participating in the meeting. And I think basically all the commissions are that way. The public has a right to get on the agenda, come and address the commission, same with the election commission, same with the council here. The commission runs the commission under Robert's Rules of Order. And basically, those rules provide that the commission discusses and takes action on what's on the agenda. They can invite comment from anyone that they want to, but the chairman basically runs the meeting. And the purpose for that is that if you open it up to the public, you're going to have a public hearing every meeting with several people there asking questions. The commission will get their work done. So that's basically the reason for not allowing the public to speak, to become involved in the meeting unless they're on the agenda. I've been in this rules committee many times. I've not seen any of the public here coming up and talking to the rules committee if they're not on the agenda. I doubt that or a representative of someone on the agenda. I doubt that this committee would allow that unfettered addressing from anyone in the audience. But the meetings will be open, everything will be above board. Since I've been there, I know of no decision that has been made by any 3 or 4 of the commission that was a policy decision except in an open meeting. I've advised them they can't do that. This requiring open meetings I think would maintain that in effect, with the exception of the work policies.
I'm trying to make sure I understand this part right. So if, like when y'all was trying to straighten out, let's say Adair County, 3 or 4 of them's down there on the phone calling. That's what this covers. To keep that from being an official meeting and calling an official meeting, 3 of them can be down there on the phones calling people, trying to correct accuracy.
Yes. Because the Open Meeting Act says that if a quorum of the commission, a majority of 3 of them, are together conducting business of the commission. Well, they're conducting business to the position. They're just not making policy decisions or voting on anything that requires action. They're workers, actually. They're filling the spot of an employee because they don't have enough. When before election time, they don't have enough employees to take care of all this. The commission has to chip in and help.
Otherwise, they'd be just a big long meeting one day. Okay, that takes care of it. Okay.
Councilor Walker Stick?
Harvey, just kind of rehash all this, but, so you guys fall under, you have an Open Meetings Act, and so the public is invited to your meetings, correct? And so you guys post those meetings with us?
We post them on the website of the Cherokee Nation, and we post them at the office of the meeting.
Okay. All right, so, that's all I just wanted to hear.
In fact, we for the first time this year, it had not been done previously, we adopted a regular meeting schedule for the full year of 2014. And we posted that on the website and at the office.
I've heard a few people in this council, and I've heard some rumors in the public that your guys' meetings were closed, but I'm glad that you're telling us that they are open to the public.
Only closed our executive sessions.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councilor Watts?
I would make a motion to go back to the original language on E.
Restore. Motion?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Councilor Lay?
And the original language, thank you, Mr. Chairman, are we actually doing away with that in the effect that if the commission goes by the Open Meetings Act, do we have a right? The Freedom of Information Act is already built into that, or can somebody tell me it is or is not?
Well, the FOIA Act and this is only it's not addressing information, it's only addressing the meeting. And the new language just allows them to have working groups with the FOIA, and it's still at the bottom, says that they will have an open meeting, and decisions they will vote on during an open meeting, they won't make any decisions on the working group. It just gives them the
to work. And so, that's why it says that, is so that it doesn't turn into a quorum. That way they won't, the three of them will be able to go in.
For those work group meeting sessions.
Yeah, so that's all that
Is there anywhere in here that guarantees, say me, the right to ask for freedom of information later on?
I don't think there's anything in there that blocks the
Blocks it.
information. But this point is only for the meeting. It's not information.
Thank you.
I'd call for the question. We can always come back and rehash this later on, make amendments, but I'd like to call for the question.
Wishes of the committee.
Yeah. Is this, you're calling for the question on E?
No, for the whole.
Point of order. We have a motion on the table concerning section E,
Yes.
which addresses the main motion, so a call for the main motion would be out of order at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Call on that, then we'll call.
I didn't accept that. I mean, I'm letting you guys talk here, and I'll correct you when need to be. So we got a motion and second. Councilor Layton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could have a follow-up, I think I was asking our esteemed attorney if there's any blockage of me asking for Freedom of Information Act from the commission if we hardline those.
I'll look and see, but this only was this provision.
I think that's one of the questions that
I'll
some
look,
councilors have.
I'll look after you all vote.
Okay. You have a motion and second. All in support, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Section E. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Roll call.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Marty Becker, Joe Bird,
No.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Rodney Pissingham,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Frankie Hargis, Connie Rose Jordan,
No.
Nick Keener,
Yes.
Rick Lake,
No.
Curtis Snell,
No.
Denise Taylor,
No.
David Thornton,
No.
Victoria Vasquez,
No.
David Walking Stick,
No.
Carol Moore.
Yes.
Five yeas, 10 no.
Chairman, I'd like to call for the question.
Question's been called. Any more discussion? Councilor Watt?
We just got this on our desk before this. I haven't had time to read it. We haven't finished full discussion, and I'm adamantly opposed for ending debate at this point.
Okay.
Make a motion to table until next month's meeting.
Second.
The call for a question takes precedence over any other motion and any other discussion.
I gave her the right to go and voice since she's so concerned about it.
But she can make a motion on another motion.
Okay. There's calls for the question. Councilor Keener?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're still not really through digesting this, and our attorney has another question that's not answered yet, so I can't vote on this quite yet. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Carter?
I think we're just getting started with looking at this. I know Councilman Walkenstick has another job and he's been double dipping, but I know he wants to go somewhere else.
Point of order. Point of order.
Talk about this.
I don't think we want to get into personal stuff here.
Probably not.
Let's just stay professional and take the item and the agenda as it comes. So anyway, you got a call for a question? Let's vote, see how it goes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Roll call.
Don Garvin,
No.
Frankie Hargis, Connie Rose Jordan,
Yes.
Nick Keener,
No.
Rick Lake,
Yes.
Curtis Snell, yes, Denise Taylor,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes. David Washington.
Yes.
Carol Martin.
No.
Jack Baker.
No.
Harvey Bunker. Joe Byrd.
Yes.
Julia Coates.
No.
Jody Fishing-Hawk.
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda.
Point of order. Now, we voted on just calling for the question, right?
Yes.
So we voted on moving this to full council then at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you've got annual review of a tribal council travel expense policy, possible action, any suggested changes, speaker, and council official.
Yeah, this is, as you all agreed to last year, you wanted a yearly review of the travel policy. And I have had the original one placed in your book, for your review, and that's where we're at now to see if this is, where you want to keep the travel policy at this point in time.
The one in your book is, can I go?
You got the floor, speaker.
Well, I just put it on for annual review. Now, if there is a
Council official.
change, they would make a motion and second.
Okay. I had made a change to it, and I had put the one out, and had them make copies and put the one out for you. As you know, there's already been announcements for higher offices. It's been announced. At least 3 people are already running for our highest office. So I made a change on that. That's the one before you. It's the one, it's the one in red.
What page you on?
Page 2 of the one that's handed out. Oh, I know.
Okay.
And that one, this one's mine, and I'm making this one. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and make this one the form of a motion.
I'll make a second on that.
Now, you're making a motion on the total,
Of the one in front of you, that was handed out in red.
Just the change.
just the change. And
This
that's
is-
the second page of red.
Yes.
Okay.
On an annual review, this would be your time if you as an individual counselor want to have us entertain changes on it. That's the way we did it last year.
Okay.
Is the changes in the policy was in red, that will, I'll have to make the changes on the date that it was effective in the 11 months.
Okay. That would be page 2, 7. Definition? Every definition.
Yes.
Okay, you had a motion, second discussion? Counselor Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this should also apply to anyone that's going to run for their next seat in the next term, too. It shouldn't just apply to, because right now it seems to be narrowly focused on probably 2 individuals that have not formally announced. And so there's no definition for announcement, and it's not applicable to all branches, because there's other people that have announced, they shouldn't travel either on Cherokee money, if that's what the whole point of it is. And then what is an announcement? So are those definitions provided,
I
or?
took, I'm gonna be honest, I took y'all's inspiration on Facebook.
So just the intention somewhere, and it's not a formal announcement, and there's no filing, that this suddenly becomes,
I took what I seen on Facebook when you said you was running. And you was running as a team.
so I don't think Lee said anything. I have posted some stuff about intentions. There's been no formal announcement. We're not in, that. I mean, we don't file till March of 2015. A lot can happen between then and there. But in the meantime, I have a job to do. So I'm trying to figure out why I'm being targeted, or even Lee's being targeted, or anyone else, and it doesn't apply to the executive branch, and it doesn't apply to all elected positions in the same manner. Because that means, because we already have a 6-month moratorium on its mailouts and community meetings, but we have nothing on travel or anything for anyone, and, you know, and that would adversely impact at large, who absolutely relies on travel to serve their communities. So it seems awfully biased and unfair, so I'm trying to figure out how to make it fair. If we're gonna go this direction, we have to make it applicable across the board.
If you was going to announce that she was running for chief right now, I would make it applicable to you. And it's nothing against you right now, but if you was to get on Facebook and say tomorrow, if you're throwing your hat in the ring, I would apply it to you right now, and I would say, Jack, even though you're serving that large, I don't think you should be using the Cherokee people's stuff, even though you are an at-large representative. It has to do with the Cherokee people's stuff. I do not think you ought to politic on it, period. I don't think it was set up that way. I don't think our travel policy was set up.
Is that why we got Chief Baker's face twice on a card for Cherokee Phoenix that we'd approved as a council?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just,
I'm just taking care of us. This is the council house. You can take care of him. You can deal with that. I'm dealing with our travel policy.
well, I'm trying to, it's also, it's not addressing council people running again then, too. I mean, it's not addressing the, if we're gonna do it.
That's your problem.
Okay, but again, it's another thing that I only saw when I sat down and a hard copy was put in front of me. So I'm trying to read and digest stuff as we conduct a meeting that is fundamentally changing how we do business. I want to address it, but I haven't been given the opportunity to figure it out. I mean, I'd love to have amendments ready to go, but to do that, I would have to have it, you know, with maybe even a day in advance would be awesome.
Comment?
It doesn't say announced, it says declared. And I read the same, I mean, I got screenshots from a half a dozen different people that were attributed to someone of this body saying, yes, I'm running for chief, and here is my running mate. We have to govern ourselves, and that's what these policies are for. They are just for the council. This is your yearly review of your travel policy. This travel policy has nothing to do with employees. It has nothing to do with the executive branch. It has nothing to do with other entities. This is just the 17 of us.
Councilor Watts?
Does this also include prohibiting, like if we have our joint council? Because it seems like it doesn't include our regular meetings. Joint council and some other stuff in there.
The way this reads, whoever has declared or announced would receive travel to the regular or special committee meetings and full council meetings. That's the way this reads. That's what is on the table.
Tri-council will be okay?
What is on the table would not allow them any sort of travel other than to and from committee meetings here and to full tribal council. And they can make, if this passes, they just make, some of you all make announcements and send those in. I went here, I went there, you itemize your miles. That's what they will be expected to do.
I would offer a friendly amendment that it's for any tribal other than official travel, and the definition's in 5. You're precluding folks from doing their job because you're requiring them to be at the joint council and its attendance and such, and it's publicly reported, but you're not going to allow them?
If you were really interested in doing your job, you would be asking about traveling within your district. You're asking about traveling at large. No, I will not accept it.
I am all over my district, even though you guys put me in one I don't live in. I am there. I'm in the neighboring district where they still expect me to be. So
I hear you, I'm all over the place myself.
I see Joe everywhere too, so it's, you know, we're all doing our job.
I serve the Cherokee people. I didn't redistricting was never my priority. I support that. But anyway, let's get back to the issue at hand. Any more comments on travel? We've heard from the speaker and Councilor Watts.
My only problem with this is these counselors that's going to run for chief, or deputy chief, or whatever, going to community meetings, going to meetings on Cherokee land, going to meetings to receive your card, and campaigning at those meetings. You shouldn't be doing that on the Cherokee's travel fund. So that's one thing that I'm going to support this on.
Okay, let's hear from the committee. We got 17, 15 council members. Everyone has an opinion, I know.
Councilor Byrd?
Yes, Councilor Watts.
You mean
Coates?
Coates?
Yes.
Yes, I've had my hand up for some time. Thank you for recognizing me. I don't necessarily disagree with this. I think I agree with Councilor Thornton's comments that he just made. I guess my problem with doing this at this particular moment is that I well recall a community meeting in Kansas City in August of 2010 when our present chief, Bill John Baker, who was at that time on the tribal council, was at that meeting and handing out cards announcing his candidacy for chief. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Councilor Fishing Hawk was also at that meeting. And 2 months later, in October of that year, Councilor Bill John Baker also traveled to picnics in Southern California after he had announced his candidacy. I presume a float in the parade that year would be an announcement. Certainly handing out cards at a community meeting would be an announcement. And so I think that, and nothing was done at that time to prohibit his travel. So I think that it's reasonable that counselors who are on this body at this moment would think that until the official filing date, or I think our law presently, or policy presently reads 6 months before, if you're in an election, 6 months before the election date, I think it's reasonable that people on this present body may have thought the same thing that applied for Councilor Bill John Baker in 2010 would apply now as well, and that prohibition would not be put in place until probably about 6 months before the election. So I think this is kind of, I don't disagree with it, but I think it's something that we need to be grandfathered in after the 2015 election, because we really are just changing horses in midstream here. People who had seen this done previously, but now suddenly, an early announcement before the 6 month prohibition on travel, and are now, thinking that that's going to hold with them like it did with other candidates in the past, are suddenly being cut off. And that's my problem with it. It's not so much with the amendment itself as it is with the timing of it. I do think that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I think we need to grandfather this in after this coming election. Thank you.
Well noted. Speaker?
Well, I agree with you, Coach. It should be the same. And I happen to know, and we have our travel person here to verify, Chief Baker quit traveling on our money almost 2 years ahead of the last election and traveled on his own money. And the point to be made here is you can still travel. We're just saying if you're a declared candidate, travel on your own money. And that was the same thing that happened in the last election almost 2 years ahead of time. He traveled on his own money for 2 years before that election. And if the parties were willing to do that, I would be fine with not passing this. But when the parties are not willing to do that and still trying to schedule meetings out up late in the summer to go at large on our money, and they're already declared candidates, folks, we've got to police our own house. That's what we've come to, is we've got to police our own house. You're not prohibited from traveling, you just can't travel on this money. You can travel on your own money, and I would assume anyone that has declared they're going to run for chief or deputy chief has thought ahead for how they're going to pay for their own politicking for the next 15 months. And traveling is just part of a budget that you prepare for yourself when you're getting ready to run for one of these races.
Counselor Watts?
Thank you. I'm not concerned as long as there's a fair policy for whoever, because at the end of the day, not all of us will be sitting in these seats forever, and we should be thinking about how to fairly affect people in the future. But I want to make it clear that I am not politicking on the Cherokee Nation's money, that there's scholarship deals that have been requested of me, the workshops, and they have watched me do them here at home for a long time. There were other ways, and folks have asked for me to come do those. So I will just have to tell them no, and that's okay. Thank you.
If I could respond, if I still have the floor. Councilor Watts, you might let them know that the education department would be glad to do that, or also the educational foundation. We have several different groups that can go and talk to at-large groups about the education and scholarships that might be available for their people.
Counselor Coates?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to respond to Counselor Glory Jordan. I stand corrected. I did not know that the chief was, our present chief was traveling on his own money at that time, but I don't think it necessarily changes my central point, because I wonder exactly how many of us on this body did know that. Know that and presumed he was traveling on Cherokee Nation money. I think that probably many others did as well. And so again, it hasn't been clear to people, that there was any kind of prohibition to an early announcement in terms of travel being cut off. So I don't, I stand corrected, but in the end, I don't think it necessarily changes the points I was trying to make. I think that what people, have seen happen in the past has led to presumptions that are reasonable, and I think that we need to do this, but we need to do it in a way that is fair, starting with the candidates for 2017. Thank you.
Any more comments? We have a motion and a second, is that correct, Gail? All in favor of passage of this act? Let's do roll call.
David Gordon,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
David Walkingstead.
Yes.
Cherokee Moore,
No.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard, Joe Byrd,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Joe Bryant,
Yes.
John Garvin,
No,
Frankie Harris, Connie Laura Jordan,
Yes.
Lee Keener,
No.
Dick Lay,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Denise Taylor.
Yes.
10 yeas, 5 nays.
Passes. Announcements, next meeting, February 27th, 1 o'clock.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Counselor Baker?
Yes. I'd like to announce that we have Phil Powers from our San Diego Community Group who's with us today.
Thank you for having me. I wish we had your weather, Phil.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. 10 minutes.
10 minutes.